Welcome in. It's the early wedge. I'm Rick Gehman. This is your DFS preview for this week's Memorial. We're going to go through this star-studded field and figure out the best plays for this week. And joining me to do just that, Mike McClure is here. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Rick. Hello, Cio. Fired up to be here. The Memorial Tournament has always been one that I really enjoy. I've had a lot of success with it in DFS outrights. I think I had like Cantley in 21 and Hovland. So I just have fond memories of this tournament in particular from cashing DFS tickets. So let's hopefully do that again here.
I think we should keep the good times rolling. Sia Nejad is here. Hello, Sia.
Hello. Did Cantley really win that one though? Did he really win that one?
The check cleared.
And yeah, I was going to say the fantasy site said so. The odds maker said so. So for our purposes, yes, he did win that one.
I guess that's fair. Happy to be on with you guys. Happy we got the Memorial. You guys know I'm happy anytime we got a tournament and we got DFS pricing. So let's do it.
We've got a tournament. We've got DFS pricing. We have a signature event with a cut. This is the final of 3 of the signature events that do have a cut. And Mike, let's just jump right on into this thing because it's going to be a stacked field. We're going back to Muirfield Village. This is Jack's place. This is generally, easy for me to say, considered one of the best non-major championship tests that we get on a yearly basis. What say you about Muirfield Village?
I completely agree. You look at just the past winners in general too. I'll tell you, it's the cream of the crop. It is certainly going to rise to the top here. No exceptions. And it's one that we've got a lot of data on. So I always enjoy something like that. I think there are interesting nuggets in terms of some of the course history. All in all, again, one of my favorite events. I've had a lot of success individually at it because I think out of a lot of the events out there, I think it's, knock on wood, pretty predictable.
Pretty predictable. Yeah. Sticky course history for sure. You're going to see a lot of guys. We're going to talk about a lot of guys with some pretty elite runs around this place. 8 under par, the winning score last year, Scottie Scheffler. 7 under par for Viktor Hovland the year prior. I'll throw Billy Horschel into the mix, Sia, but then it's Cantlay twice, Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau. This is generally a place where the best guys contend.
It's true in terms of the winner, but what's interesting, particularly from a DFS standpoint too, is that, we know with these lineups, we don't have to just choose the winner. Sometimes we don't even have to choose the winner. And when you look at like the top 5 and top 10, it's just interesting to see some of the names that sneak in there because you've got some of your premium guys that are, the heavy hitters in more ways than one and have the complete game. But then you have guys that show up that are, got a couple of skill sets, but don't have the complete game and are just able to take advantage of what the course has to offer them, which isn't much, but if they're accurate off the tee, but a shorter hitter, for example, if they're good around the green, if they're good at the long iron proximities, there's a lot of things you can do to succeed here in terms of making a top 10 or a top 5 without being one of those premium players.
Yeah, I can point out that I'm cherry picking these, but Denny McCarthy lost in a playoff to Viktor Hovland. Aaron Wise finished second to Billy Horschel. Ryan Palmer finished second to Jon Rahm, and both Benny On and Kyle Stanley lost in a 3-way playoff to Bryson DeChambeau. That was much before. That was about 150 pounds ago for Bryson DeChambeau. I believe that was his first victory back in 2018. Mike, when you start assessing this layout, which Josh has got the scorecard up there, and I can assure you it looks docile in that form right there. But there are a lot of ways that this course can bite you. What are the things that you're most looking for when selecting players for this week?
It's definitely going to be the approach. It's definitely going to be tee to green overall. But one metric, I talked a little bit about it on Sunday on the very little preview that we did on the live show. I weight strokes gain around the green quite a bit here. I want someone who's going to be good around those greens, going to be good scrambling. Those are things that I'm certainly going to care about. But anytime you get somewhere like this, we know how important approach play in tee to green is. I'm also just simply looking at total strokes gained and kind of recent form blended with some of that course history. I'm very confident that it's going to be, that top select group of players. That's very likely where the winner and at least 2 of the guys you're going to need in your lineup is going to come from.
Where does this fall on the scale for you, Sia, in terms of importance of course history? Because I'm sure I'll definitely point it out as we go along here. You're going to see Scottie Scheffler with a bunch of top 3 finishes. You're going to see Colin Morikawa and Patrick Cantlay, throw Hideki Matsuyama into the mix, right? You're going to see this really elite level course history. How does this compare to other courses or recent weeks that we've had for you?
So I've tried to minimize course history in my analysis from tournament to tournament, but I will say this to your question. I agree with what you said earlier, the reference when you talked about it being sticky, because, it's one thing if you see the primetime players, the top 5, top 10 in the world being good here. It's like, okay, yeah, they're going to be good at every tough course. They're generally going to be good everywhere. But when you go lower on the board, you start to see what looks like repeatable history from that second, third, fourth tier of player. And for the record, we're talking DFS, we're talking ownership, right? So everybody's going to see the same thing that we're seeing. So I think, yes, Rick, I think it's sticky, and I think it's something to maybe dial into this tournament maybe a little bit more than others. But we also have to kind of know where the wind is blowing with respect to how people are going to set their lineups. And if we have to pivot because somebody has either bad experience or no experience here, it might be a worthy pivot if it's going to be a low-owned player.
There are going to be some interesting names that we'll get to, guys that have played really well this year that are going to make their debut around Muirfield Village, which I find rather fascinating for this week. And we're going to start naming those names. We're going to start going through the tiers. We'll start clicking on all the numbies, but first we'll take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
And we're back. Here it is. This is the cheat sheet on my website, rickrungood.com. There are 3 golfers, gentlemen. There's always a big 3. This time it's Scottie Scheffler at 13,300, Xander Schauffele at 10,900, and Justin Thomas at 10-1. We've got to consider salaries here, Mike. Obviously, it's a salary cap game, but what would you like to do at the top of the board?
Out of those 3, yeah, it would be Scottie. Give me Scottie Scheffler still. I think he's going to be playable at the price point. Limited field is always something of note. I'm not thinking I'm going to get to Xander here. JT, I've liked the run that he's kind of been on, but the price point is caught up just enough here. There's some guys in the 9s that I'm really, really interested in. So if I were to play one of these 3, it's going to be the man Scottie, even at that price tag at 13.3.
What's the situation on Xander? Is it the price difference between Scottie and Xander, the price difference between Xander and Justin Thomas, or is it just the fact that he is not in form? Like, what is the reason you won't get to Xander as much here?
Yeah, mostly just the kind of the price point there. I'm willing to buy in on like Hideki and Cantlay at 9 and 9.5, and it's just meaningfully above that in this field at 10.9. I would have liked to seen Xander, maybe even with JT, maybe like right at 10, maybe 10.2. But I feel very confident that given his current state, he's probably 500 at a minimum too expensive in this field. Now, if you want to make the assumption that he's all the way back, then he's priced appropriately. I don't think he's quite all the way back, so I'm going to be out on Xander.
He is, oh boy, quick math, $2,400 cheaper than Scottie Scheffler. He's $800 more expensive than Justin Thomas. Just as we go through this, I'll point out Scottie Scheffler, defending champion, 2023 finished 3rd, 2021 finished 3rd as well. Xander Schauffele, I'll pull up his memorial information, and it's solid. 1 missed cut. That was in his first appearance in 2018. Nothing outside the top 25 outside of that. Sia, do you view the top of this board in the same way that Mike does, or are we going in a different direction?
I do, and I wonder how everybody else is going to view it. I'm kind of hoping Xander's name and maybe his low ownership, let's say on a Wednesday morning or lower than people expect, kind of give him a bump and he gets to like a reasonable amount of ownership, because I have no interest in playing him. And I don't have a ton of interest in playing Justin Thomas either. And it's really what Mike said about, well, the guys in the 9K range who might be in better form, by the way, maybe not the caliber Xander Schauffele is, but might be in slightly better form. I'd rather pay there than I'd want to play for Xander. And I don't know, with respect to Justin Thomas, as I scan his course history, I mean, it's nothing particularly impressive. I'm not 100% sure, especially with the off the tee trouble that you can get into, that he's a great course fit. So I'm paying for Scottie and I'm moving on. And I will say, like, in crafting some lineups, it's hard to make a Scottie lineup and get a 9K guy in your lineup. It's hard to make a Scottie lineup and get an upper 8K guy in your lineup. So you're going to have to make some sacrifices if you play Scottie. But if you don't, I think you can skip past the 10K range and start in the 9s.
I'm generally a bull on Justin Thomas, but I will note they changed the greens around here after the 2020 version. Before, on the old greens, JT's gain strokes putting in 3 out of his last 4 trips. Since they changed those greens, he has been miserable. Like, he's lost like 14 strokes putting in 10 rounds. Maybe it's the greens, maybe it's not. It's not like Justin Thomas is the most accomplished putter we've ever seen in our lifetime. So it could be a lot of things, but I thought it was worth pointing out that is pretty clear at those differences, especially when those changes came about. Let's talk 2020. Let's talk about the 9K range. 2020 was a weird year. 2020, we played this golf course back-to-back weeks. We played it for the Workday Charity Open. We played it for the Memorial. Collin Morikawa, who leads this 9K range, won the first one. He beat Justin Thomas in a playoff. Patrick Cantlay is here. We already discussed his win? Here a couple of years ago. He's $95, $100. Tommy Fleetwood is $94. Ludwig Oberg is $93. And then we round this group out at $91 and $9,000 with Corey Connors and Hideki Matsuyama. So Sia, here's that coveted 9K range where I think you can choose. There's a lot to like here, and you can kind of take whatever you want out of it. Where are we going first?
There's a lot to like, Rick, but this is the first, me, I'm a 9K guy. Everybody is, right? 9Ks are always very tasty to people. I say that on Memorial Day for all the barbecuers out there, but I don't love this range for a couple of reasons. Yes, I understand why people like Collin Morikawa and Corey Connors, who you have highlighted here at rickrungood.com.
Yeah, I favorite those guys. That's my bet.
Well, no, listen, by the way, I love that function on RRG. I do it too. And it's actually a really nice placeholder for me. With all that said, though, people are going to flock to Collin Morikawa. They're going to flock probably a little bit to Patrick Cantlay and probably a little bit to Corey Connors, but mostly Cantlay and Morikawa. And I just think to myself, when I look at these finishing positions, yeah, the metrics look good, but at a certain point, you have to ask yourself sort of the Tommy Fleetwood question, which is, can they win? And again, it's DFS. Collin doesn't necessarily have to win to have an optimal lineup, but certainly the preference if you're going up there. I'm going to be off Collin because I think he's going to have enough ownership for me to be off of him. And honestly, as good of a course fit as he is, I'm just not super interested. And because I'm playing a lot of Scottie lineups, it's very easy for me to skip over this range. However, if I'm making a non-Scottie lineup or two, I don't know. I might go down to the low 9K range, like really low, like Connors and Decky or Hovland and Straka, really immerse myself in those 4 players and take a stand because I'm just not in love with either the player or the ownership in the upper and mid 9K range.
I think Sia was alluding to Collin Morikawa and Corey Connors both not winning enough. Well, we might have to circle back on that in just one second. Here is the Hideki Matsuyama profile. He has won this event. It was back in 2014. He's got a bunch of top 15 and top 10 finishes along the way. He got disqualified in 2022 for putting white out on his driver face. Just a lot of weird things have happened at this event over the last handful of years. Mike, I'll throw this 9K range back to you because there's great course history here. There's guys trending in the right direction. Maybe there are some question marks about how much win equity this group possesses, but what do you see in this range?
I see a lot that I like, honestly. I'm going to mention Tommy Fleetwood right off the bat because the guy just can't win a golf tournament, but he can be right there. He's just right there. I like the way Tommy Fleetwood profiles. I think the narrative is, until he wins, he's going to continue to lose a few points of ownership every single week because he just simply never wins. So I think that he could get squeezed a little bit here when you have the narrative that Tommy doesn't ever win and you see where Cantlay's history is. It's not hard to go get Morikawa if you want to. For me, it'll be Corey Connors, Tommy Fleetwood, Hideki Matsuyama. Those will be the top 3 here in this range for me. I'll probably have some Cantlay pending that projected ownership number at that point. But Corey Connors, Tommy Fleetwood, Hideki Matsuyama, I am in on all 3 of them. The comment on Hideki, I'm very interested in Hideki anytime that we feel that the winning score is going to be, maybe 10 under par or lower. Always going to be in there. And the dude is just a magician around the greens. And that excites me a lot. So I like Hideki. I'm going to play him quite a bit for sure.
The thing that excites me about Hideki is that when he has his A game, it is unworldly, and he looks like the best player on the planet. Worth noting, so Tommy Fleetwood in his last 4 starts has a 7th at Harbor Town. That was a signature event. A 4th at the Truist. That was a signature event. And a 4th at the Charles Schwab Challenge. Corey Connors has been playing great golf as well. He's been piling up top 10 finishes. I want to circle back here because there's a guy in this range, see, at $9,300 named Ludwig Oberg, who I was positive would be the number 1 player in the world by now. It's almost June. He won earlier this year at Torrey Pines. He was in the mix again at the Masters, and here we are through 2 rounds of discussion in the 9K range, and Ludi's name has not popped up once.
So when you're looking at a tournament that's going to emphasize iron play, but specifically long iron play and around the green play because of a variety of reasons, including these small greens and low GIR percentage. Like I don't like, it's one thing if you consider, like, if you think Xander's turned it around, you think Xander's ready, because we've seen it across all of his metrics at certain points, him really kind of jump, but Ludwig's just kind of been bad on approach, and I don't trust his short game. The putting, I think, could rebound on these greens, but the around the green play from round to round, I don't trust him. And at 9,300, I mean, it's certainly a fair price, but I typically don't mind taking superstars who are in bad form. But here's the thing. I said that about Ludwig, like 5 tournaments ago, and he's kind of turned it around in one tournament since. So I'm out on Ludwig.
Ludwig's lost strokes on approach in 3 straight. He's lost strokes putting in 3 out of 5. Mike, don't think you're off the hook of this Ludwig conversation because he finished T5 here last year. Is this a situation where he has just not shown us enough in the calendar year?
I might be in on Ludwig. I don't hate it at all. And I'll spin it back around and kind of create my own question because I love to do that sometimes. And I'd rather play Ludwig than Xander, given the price points. I would rather play Ludwig there. The thing that I'll point to is we had this exact same conversation after the Players in the Valero heading into the Masters. We didn't really know what we wanted to do with Ludwig at the Masters, coming off the 2 missed cuts at the Players and Valero. You get to the Masters, it's the ultimate test of golf. It's going to be a low scoring event. Difficult track. I don't mind investing in someone we believe to be truly an elite caliber golfer when you're getting a price discount, you're getting an ownership discount, just a general sentiment discount. I don't have any issue playing Ludwig this week.
Yeah, sentiment seems quite low. I think that's a good point. Everyone's just kind of throwing up their hands, not really sure what to do with Ludwig at the moment. Let's roll on here. We've got the 8K range. We've got our winner from 2 years ago. That's Viktor Hovland at 8,900. Sepp Straka, Shane Lowry, Daniel Berger, residing all in the upper 8K range, and Jordan Spieth is right at 8,500. Then the bottom of this range, that's Russell Henley, Siwoo Kim, Tony Finau, and then we'll finish it off with Sung Jae, Keegan Bradley, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Mike, I believe it's your turn to go first here. This is a very interesting range. A lot of these guys, about half of them, missed the cut in their most recent start. Now, for a lot of these guys, that was the PGA Championship, which I don't know how we want to deal with that. But what are you gleaning from this 8K range?
Daniel Berger is someone that I rates really well. Now, his missed cut was at the Schwab, which is not great. I'm still going to go back to him a little bit. I know he's 8,600. The course history is fascinating here. He missed the cut once, finished top 5, and then just DMPs, right? So, he can get around it. He profiles very well for me. At 8,600, I think that there are just enough names that I think like the sentiment on guys like Hideki is going to be there. I think that people will see some of the course history and stuff with Viktor, just 300 more. And then if you're trying to grab Scottie, I just think it's really difficult to build Scottie Berger lineups and justifying like 8,600 on him. So I think he could get squeezed a bit coming in here on the ownership. I'm planning to play him in those non-Scottie lineups as the second guy in the lineup.
The Berger stuff is really interesting because he's a great putter who has completely lost it over the last 4. It hasn't always impacted his finishing positions. He has a 3rd at Harbour Town and a T11 at the Truist. Both of those were signature events where he lost strokes putting for the week, still was able to get good results out of them. Sia, when you go over this 8K range, what are you snagging here?
I do want to ask a question first because I was going to be out on Daniel Berger. Now that you're showing me, kind of reminding me of the putting profile over the last 4 tournaments specifically, Rick, this does feel like a potential team no putt course, right? I mean, if you're going to rebound with the putter, it could be on these kind of very smooth, pure bent grass greens, correct? I mean, I'm trying to make an argument for Daniel Berger because I'm really not that interested in playing it.
I think the argument for Berger is a couple of things. So Mike was right. He played here. He's played here once on the new greens. He hasn't played here a lot. He played here in 2022. He played here in 2020. He played here in 2016. So that's three trips in the last decade. It's obviously not a ton. Last time we did see him was on the new greens. He picked up 6.5 strokes putting. The other thing is these losses on the putting surfaces look worse, Sia, when they are collapsed by tournament. If you look at Harbour Town, he was a very good putter over the course of the weekend. He just lost a ton on Thursday and Friday. Same thing at the Truist. He loses 3.5 strokes putting in the first round, one of his worst putting rounds ever. Putts really well over the final 3 days. PGA Championship, same thing. Gets off to a really slow start, loses 4 strokes putting in his first 2 rounds, and figures it out. So he's been able to figure it out in game, but he has blown so many of those strokes early on that it makes the profile, I believe, look worse than it actually is. But it's still not good. Don't get me wrong. You still have to add them all up at the end of the week. But I did want to point that it's not like he's losing
every single day
straight rounds. Yeah.
No, that's actually extremely helpful. So I'm probably still going to be out on Berger, especially if ownership comes in. I like the names that are right atop of him. I like Shane Lowry. I like Sepp Straka. I'm not usually a Shane Lowry guy, but I mean, I'm looking at the history of both of these guys. It's very good. They certainly profile accurate off the tee. Obviously, with Lowry, the short game is there. Straka's hasn't been absolutely terrible. The approach play is going to be good with these guys. I just think both of those guys are in a very interesting range. And I think I'm just throwing it out there. If you play them together, there's not going to be a lot of lineups that have that. Those 2 guys specifically together. I like them both in the top of the 8K range. I'm talking. I like those guys the most.
Sepp Straka has captured 2 victories this year, one at the American Express, one at the Truist just 2 starts ago. His last 2 trips to Muirfield Village have been very good in terms of returns, T16 and a T5 finish. Shane Lowry's record around here is a bit more checkered. Some really good results, a handful of top 20 finishes, including a T6, a couple of missed cuts, a couple finishes outside the top 30. So kind of all over the place for Lowry, but he was one of the guys who finished runner-up to Sepp Straka just a couple of weeks ago in Philadelphia. The middle and bottom half of this range, Mike, Russell Henley, who tends to model well, although this is kind of a big ballpark for him, is at $8,400. Jordan Spieth is at $8,500. And of course, there are always some intriguing names with Finau, Sungjae Im, and Keegan Bradley. Is there something at the bottom of the range that you think is better than something else?
Is Siwoo Kim going to win this golf tournament? Maybe. I like Siwoo Kim, 8,300. The course history is ridiculous. He profiles well, and the recent form I think is pretty good. To be honest with you, I know that you don't always have some of the strength of field in some of those events, but we're talking T8 at the PGA Championship. He's been in the top 20. He's T8 at RBC Heritage as well. If he didn't shoot an opening round 73 last week at the Schwab, he might have been, top 5. I think the current form's there. I think the course history is just simply undeniable. And just looking at all the metrics profiling, like he doesn't carry the name value. He's very close to some of those other guys. I don't know that the ownership gets out of control. If you're building a lineup in the 8s or having multiple guys in the 8s, I think that Siwoo Kim in it's not guaranteed 4 rounds, but I feel pretty good that he's playing all 4 rounds.
Yeah, if he doesn't play all 4 rounds, you're in trouble anyway. So the history for Siwoo at the Memorial, last 5, no worse than a T18, highlighted by a T9 in 2021 and a 4th place finish in 2023. I've been playing a lot of Siwoo recently. I've gotten 3 or 3.5 good rounds out of him almost every single time he tees it up, and I'm not going to stop now, as Mike alludes to that great course history here. When you look at the bottom of the 8K range here, Sia, is there anything worth grabbing, or are we moving on here?
Well, I haven't been on the Siwoo train, so I'm late to the party, but I am absolutely playing him this week.
You haven't missed all that much, quite honestly. You've missed a lot of Sunday sadness is what you've missed.
That's impressive, though. I mean, again, his lead-in form, his course history, I think the price is right at 8,300. I like Siwoo quite a bit. When we go down the board, there's a few guys I like. One I actually want to get both your opinions on. First of all, I think Sung J M is interesting. I haven't decided if I'm going to play him. Same with Russell Henley. I do have to ask you, though, is Matt Fitzpatrick back? Because this is a nice spot for him, and he's been playing pretty well. I don't mind playing him at all at 8,000 flat.
It's definitely better. Now, that's a very low bar, Mike. I mean, he was miserable, but I will point out he's made 4 out of his last 5 cuts. The tee to green play in the last 3 measured events that we have. So actually, I shouldn't even say that, because the miscut that he had was a Zurich. We can just throw that out. Last 3 starts, his tee to green numbers have been really good. We got a vintage Matt Fitzpatrick event at the PGA Championship. That means he gained strokes in all 4 categories. That's what he was doing when things were going well. But it's been basically like a 2-year slump for Fitzy.
Yeah, it's been a big slump. Now, I will say he didn't play terribly at the Masters either. Round 1, it looked like he was gonna be right there for a bit. So the fact that he did it at the Masters and really is done it since, right? So like I know Rick, you've talked about this over the years a couple of times, just like getting a step better essentially every time you tee it up. That's definitely what Matt Fitzpatrick has done over his last 5 events. And by the way, those were no joke events. We're talking about the Masters, RBC Heritage, Truist, and the PGA Championship, right? So I don't dislike it at all, because the course history here again is also pretty good. So he might be back. He might be back in this event.
Last year, T5, the year before that, T9, 2 missed cuts in 2022, 2021, but then that 3rd place finish back in 2020. Yeah, I do like that. I do like when a stat profile, guys like plug a leak, right? Just he's struggling in this area. He starts to figure that out. It starts to take the pressure off that aspect of his game, and he can start to find it in other ways as well. Just 4 rounds aside, just looking at 4 rounds, the profile that he put up at the PGA Championship is probably one of the more beautiful profiles I could have asked for, with how he did it with approach play and not being super reliant on the putter, and now going to a place that's really good for him. So there are a lot of positives there. We're going to continue this conversation. We've got the 7K range. We've got the 6K range. We've got things to figure out. I saw some questions in the chat. Whoops, that just said good evening, David. Thank you. I saw some questions in the chat that we'll get to as well. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
UEFA Conference League Final on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
And we're back here, gentlemen. How about this 7K range at $7,900 a piece? Denny McCarthy and Sam Burns. Then in the middle of this range, that's JJ Spawn, Max Homa. If we go down to the bottom of this range, Steven Yeager, Ricky Fowler, Davis Thompson. Obviously, I have skipped a lot because there are 22 golfers in this range, Sia. Where would you like to go first?
I don't love the top of the range. I think that middle point, like when we get to JJ Spawn at 7,500, we get to Alex Noren, who I'm just very intrigued by, because he comes back from an injury and is like pretty good right away. And I think profiles well at this course, especially with that short game and being accurate off the tee. I think Spawn and Noren are a couple of names that jump out to me that aren't going to be hyper popular. Outside of that, I mean, obviously you got Ben Griffin in this range. Denny McCarthy's been good. Some people might play Sam Burns. Poston and Rye profile well. I don't think I'm playing any of those guys.
Ben Griffin, fresh off his victory, is $7,800. Alex Noren is literally back. I mean, he missed 7 months of action with a hamstring and a glute tear, and played well in his return. 51st at the Truist, makes the weekend there before struggling a bit on Saturday and Sunday, and then off to a really good start. The PGA Championship was awesome through the first 3 rounds before coughing it up a bit on Sunday and finishing T17. Mike, I'm kind of just going to start clicking through some profiles here and see what we can find, but what direction are we headed in here in the 7s?
Aaron Rai is the name that still sticks out to me. And the reason I will say this, I think it's important contextually to understand, again, you need all 4 rounds. You're pretty likely to get all 4 rounds if you're right about that player being, playable. Aaron Rai, to me, is serviceable in this field at this price point. The one thing that he does really well is just put himself in decent position off the tee. And if you can put yourself in good position off the tee here, you can put yourself in position to contend, knowing that we're not talking about needing to shoot 64 on any given round here to really be right there and relevant. So he's going to be first click in for me personally in this range. Other golfers in the 7s that stand out to me, Alex Noren is interesting, as Sia mentioned. The one all the way down at 7,100 that profiles well that I like, Andrew Novak, but he has never played here.
That's what I was alluding to a little bit earlier is Andrew Novak, Mike's been awesome in 2025, right? And just continues it. He missed the cut at the PGA, bounces right back T11 at the Charles Schwab. So here's that big no data found. Here's the big no results debutante at the Memorial. So how much does that knock a guy like Andrew Novak?
At this spot, I don't think it's going to knock him much for me. And the reason for it is, again, limited field events, still a very high probability of getting all 4 rounds. And I expect him to kind of figure it out. But it really just comes down to the question of the value, right? If you remove the name, look at the last 24 rounds. He is 9th in this field, tee to green. He is 11th in total strokes gained. Oh, and by the way, the metric that I really lean into a little bit more here is going to be the around the green play, just because it is kind of easy to get yourself out of position and have to scramble a bit. He's 7th in this field in that metric. I think it's priced appropriately. Now, if he was $7,100 in a full field event where we're, cutting half the field, I'm out. But I think there's a good shot you're still getting 4 rounds here.
He's also not afraid of a big golf course or a big field. 3rd place finish at Torrey for the Farmers, 13th place finish at Torrey for the Genesis. Those were obviously 2 different fields. His runner-up finish was the playoff loss to Justin Thomas at RBC Heritage. Played well at the Truist, which was another signature event. He finished T17 there and didn't really even play particularly well on Friday and Saturday. So yeah, I mean, Andrew Novak has shown up for the party routinely this year. And now Ben Griffin's got his victory by himself. I don't think he's going to win this one, but Andrew Novak trending towards the right direction for the rest of the year. See, at the bottom of this 7K range, these are guys that we've seen glimmers from. Ricky Fowler gives us great 18 holes at a time, or Brian Harman gives us a great 18 holes at a time. I'll throw Benny on in there as well. With the almost guaranteed 4 rounds for this week, is there anybody that you're willing to take like a dart throw, a flyer on here?
Ricky Fowler has my interest. Brian Harman a bit has. I have a little bit of interest in him. I'm very curious. And I know I'm doing the live chat with Jason Sobel at 4:00 on Wednesday, and we'll have a good ownership idea there. We'll have certainly your numbers, Rick, and we'll be able to assess what's going on in that low 7K range, because I'm kind of intrigued by the Andrew Novak thing, in the sense that when you look at the low 7K range, let's say like 7,400, or I should say 7,300 and below, I think people are going to sort of coalesce on Andrew Novak, which might mean there might be some really good leverage for guys like Adam Scott, for example. And I'm not saying these are good or bad plays or not, but Taylor Pendrith, people might be afraid to play him. Not so sure about Akshay Bhatia, but you mentioned Ben On, Davis Thompson. Maybe Ricky Fowler gets a little bit, but I do think there's some interesting leverage plays in this low 7K range. But no, I agree with you guys. It's Novak for me in terms of my favorite plays, but I am intrigued by Ricky Fowler at 7K.
Ricky Fowler, kind of did it again at the Charles Schwab, puts a couple of really, really good rounds together, fades on Sunday. He was part of that final group with Ben Griffin and Matty Schmid, who I think they were combined 8 over or something like that. And they still, 2 of them finished 1-2. So pretty incredible stuff there. Ricky Fowler's looking like he's getting closer, and he's got a ton of history, not always good, but a lot of good stuff. But he's played the Memorial basically every year he has been a professional. So he's going to have plenty of experience around this place. I want to go to the 6K range, gents. I'm going to start us off with a couple of questions from the chat here, particularly in terms of 2 golfers. There was one question it wasn't even a question. I'm going to use it for a question. Zach says, Bezuidenhout is an iron striking machine. And that might surprise you if you don't pay attention week in and week out, Mike. But Zach's kind of right. The last 3 have been great. He picked up a stroke on approach at the Truist. He picked up 5 on approach at the PGA Championship, another 4.3 at the Charles Schwab. This is a guy who's usually driven by the putter. Are we trying to get these breadcrumbs to come together at the right moment here?
I definitely think it could. He definitely has the upside. The price point's pretty appropriate. Not on my short list by any means, but I get it. I totally could see it. You just looking, last 3 times teeing it up, the tee to green numbers looked awesome, largely because of that approach. I don't think there's any problem playing him.
The other interesting thing is he's played here 4 times. He's never missed a cut. His worst finish is a T38. He has gained strokes on approach all 4 trips. He's gained strokes putting all 4 trips. He finished 4th here last year. The more I talk about him, the more I want to play him. So I'm going to move on to the other question here from James. It says, good evening, gentlemen. Looking at someone like Lucas Glover as a lower price option, and he is Sia. He's $6,500. Lucas Glover, generally a player who succeeds when accuracy becomes more important than distance. He has played the Memorial a ton, and I can tell you, it's about some of the worst history you're going to get. Lucas Glover's been around a long time. He has played this event for 20 years. His best finish was 20 years ago. He finished T8 in 2005, and he has not cracked the top 30 since then. I'm starting to think this is not a good golf course for him.
Yeah.
Maybe another 20 years of history can really hammer that home for me.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe we just have enough of a sample size. It's interesting. Lucas Glover is going to be a name that people are going to look at, and then they're going to see the history and come off of him. And I like, this is not the type of thing where I'm like, oh, I'm willing to overlook this. Lucas Glover has always been this guy. Maybe, with the putter, it can kind of come and go, particularly recently, but he's always been this great ball striker. And his his short game is improved, I guess, but it's always been checkered. If your best finishes are at this course, like what they were, that's pretty telling. I don't know what to say. I don't think I honestly, it's interesting because people will think he's a good course fit. People will see the ownership. I don't think he's going to get a ton of ownership because that's pretty bad history.
Yeah, it actually, this is one of those things where you're like, if you're the home run leader in the minor leagues, or like the career home run leader in the minor league, that's a great accomplishment. The fact that Lucas Glover has played the Memorial 20 times is unbelievable. And he's been around that long and he's gotten into this event, but he's got to have lost the most strokes to the Memorial in the history of the event. I'll have to look it up later. All right, let me thanks for the questions, guys. Let me open this 6K range up to you here, Mike. We've got a lot of options here. Sahith and Justin Rose join Christian Bezuidenhout at 6,900. Ryan Fox, Nick Taylor, and Lucas Glover are all at 6,500. And then the mid-price golfers, Brandt Snedeker, Harry Higgs, Nick Dunlap, rounding out this 30-man group in the 6s. What do you want to go for here?
I'm just going to keep playing the same lineup essentially every week. It does cash often, and eventually it's going to be right. It's Bud Cauley and Ryan Gerard. Like, why are these guys in the 6K range right now? Particularly Bud Cauley. Last 24 rounds, he's literally second in this field in total strokes gained to Scottie Scheffler. Second at 6,800. He's been great on approach. One thing Bud Cauley does really well is drive the ball. He's going to put himself in good position off the tee. He's maybe got a little course history, but it's dated. And I am very comfortable saying that anything beyond last year, we can throw out with Bud Cauley. Buy into what you've seen this year. That is who Bud Cauley is now. And then Ryan Gerard checks all the boxes for me. Again, lacking the history, but great around the greens. Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, the Bud Cauley stuff. It is good history. He's played here 7 times, but the most recent was 2020. It goes back to 2012. He's missed multiple years with that car accident and the injury that came after that since his last time he played here. So yeah, basically you go throughout all the course history for Bud, but in this case, it is pretty good stuff when you go back that far. Sia, you were nodding along there with the Bud Cauley, the Ryan Gerard. Sounds like you're on a similar trajectory.
It was mostly for the Bud Cauley part. I don't mind Ryan Gerard either, obviously. But yeah, I like Bud Cauley a lot. I like the question on Bezuidenhout. I love Christian Bezuidenhout this week. I liked him last week a lot too. I had him in the top African market. And if you had told me he was going to top 20, I would have been like, I'm going to cash that bet at minus 105. And somehow Aldrich Potgieter just like absolutely torched the place for 4 rounds. I remain stunned by that, by the way. And I'm like still kind of licking my wounds after a bad betting week last week. But I like Seabez. I like Bud Cauley. I think Nick Taylor, you might have mentioned him earlier, sort of in passing. I think Nick Taylor is sneaky. I think his game is sneaky. The approach play has been there. The around the green play is solid, obviously. And I just think he's a guy that's not going to get a ton of ownership, but is a guy that could top 20 this tournament.
He's a winner this year. Won early in January at the Sony Open, has now picked up strokes, as Sia points out, in 6 straight around the green. If you think that's going to be important, Nick Taylor trending there. He's played here 5 times. Last 2 trips are 2024 and 2021, T27 and T42. I'll bounce it back to you here, Mike. What else? I mean, Matty Schmid finished runner-up last week. He's only 6,400. We've got Tom Hoge, who we've seen get hot at times. He's also 6,400. Is there anything that you'd be willing to go for, especially in those Scottie lineups down here in the lower portion of the 6s?
It would be Matty Schmid would probably be next in. Let me see. Another guy that I've played at times, but I just don't think it's necessary here is Nick Taylor. Was not good. Really hasn't been great of late. So probably not going to get there. I think that you can get away if, again, assuming you like Cauley and Gerard, who could run into some ownership, even playing Scottie. I think you can get away with, if you play Gerard and Cauley together, not having to go true min price here. I think that the top half of the 6K range is stout. I think it falls off a cliff though quickly when you're talking, min price to 62, 6,300.
Okay. I'm just going to flash this profile because I'm nervous about it. Just Joe Highsmith. No big deal. He's 6,100. He was miserable last week, but he's better than these other guys at 6,100. I mean, he's won this year. He finished T8 at the PGA Championship. You're telling me he is $100 more than Brandt Snedeker, who is hardly competitive and got in on a sponsor's invite? I don't think so, but he made me look pretty stupid last week. But Joe Highsmith is 6,100. Cam Young is 6,700.
Wow.
What happened to Cam Young?
Wow.
Look at this. It's not good.
There's flashes. I mean, I see a couple flashes.
Yeah, I see a couple of flashes too. Oh boy. Anything else in this 6K range worth discussing?
Let me say this. I think you could take a chance on some talent with like Jacob Bridgman, who I don't think profiles well in his recent form, hasn't been great. I think guys like that, maybe Thomas Dietrich, you could take a chance on if you're playing a lot of lineups or just want to get different. But what's interesting about the 6K range is that people are just going to be forced to play it, especially the Scottie lineups. I just did a Scottie lineup with just 4 other players. Bud Cauley at 6,800. Ryan Gerard at 6,700. So already I've dipped into a 6K range twice with 2 popular players, mind you. And Andrew Novak, another guy that's probably going to get some ownership at 7,100. And it only leaves me 8,050 left. So I can't even flirt, even though I took effectively 3 high 6K guys. Effectively, that's what I did. I can't even flirt with the 9K range. And I certainly can't really do much with the upper 8K range unless I want to dip right back down to that range where I have Cauley, Gerard. And I'm not even saying that's a bad strategy to make your lineup that way, but it does showcase how difficult it is. You can take a couple of low end guys with Scottie, and you're still not left with that much money. But I'm doing it. I'll do that to some degree. I mean, I think Scottie's going to win the tournament. So here we go.
I'm not getting as much Scottie as I thought I was, but man, I am in love with the lineups that I am building. When I start with Colley and Gerard, and it leaves me $9,125 average remaining salary. You give me 4 golfers between Daniel Berger and Patrick Cantlay on this board in my lineup. I like it.
I like that. Yeah. Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's tantalizing. Those 9K golfers are all capable of winning this golf tournament. You can pile up a lot of win equity there. That's kind of what I have not built many lineups yet, but that was kind of where I was going as well, is because you could pile so many of those guys in there. It's tantalizing to see it.
Well, I also think the upper 8K, like my non-Scottie lineups, are going to showcase a lot of the upper 8K guys too, because I just don't think, in terms of like win equity and top 5 equity, I don't think there's a dramatic drop off until you get to, I mean, I hate to say it, until you get to Jordan Spieth maybe at 8,500. I just think, like, I'm not saying Daniel Berger is going to go out and win the tournament. It's more likely than Colin Morikawa. I'm just saying, like, I think Shane Lowry, Sepp Straka, who has proven it, Victor Hovland, these guys are in the upper 8K range. I think you could have all of those guys in a lineup and feel pretty comfortable in terms of their ability to win a tournament or top 5 a tournament versus the guys that are at 9,500, 9,400, and 9,300, for example. So I just don't think there's I feel like the upper 8K range should, like, is a part of the 9K range too. And that's how we should perceive it.
This tournament could have really used Rory McIlroy at 12-8.
Would have been sick. Would have been really sick. Yeah. That would have really created some pickles. Mm-hmm. But he's not here. He's going to play in Canada, and then he's going to play the US Open. We're not even close to done. Early Wedge just getting started this week. 7 p.m. on Tuesday. That's your best bets. EC, JS, SN. See what I did there? Gave everybody the initials. You can find us same place as well. But for now, big thanks, producer Josh, does all the hard work behind the scenes. See you, Nejad, Mike McClure. I'm Rick Gehman. This has been the Early Wedge. Catch you next time.